God, I'm getting blinded by this light. Temperature below 70 degrees. Pumpkins. Yeah, it's over the garden wall season. Let's make a risograph. Risograph is a really cool printer. It's mostly known for its very vibrant ink colors, grainy textures, and having each print be slightly unique due to the slight misalignments or general patches of color. It's well loved by artists all around, including me. I am artist. So for this illustration, I'm using yellow, Kelly green, and fluorescent orange. If I were to rank the risograph inks on a tier list, I'm putting all the fluorescents at the very top of the list, okay? Those kind of colors you cannot replicate in a typical CMYK printer. It does not exist. Like on my yearly rewatch of Over the Garden Wall, I wanted to draw one of my favorite scenes, which is when Jason the frog gets up and breaks into song. He starts singing his heart out. I was trying to figure out the orientation of the characters. I ended up referencing jazz bands, like how they would set up the stage. At first I had Jason the frog sitting on a bunch of boxes, and then as I'm like reorienting things, I realized he can just be on top of the piano, and that would make him the center of the image. And then everything clicked in after that. The initial idea for this is that the audience is going to include all the NPCs that you meet throughout the series from, every episode. Yeah, as I'm designing this composition, I'm trying to imagine like color blocking. There's gonna be a lot of busyness happening towards the bottom of the image, right? Because all the NPCs are gonna be all jumbled together. They're gonna have very different colors. It's gonna weigh the image down. So I was like, you know what, let's just delete the NPCs. Okay, so here's how I set up my file for risograph. I have each of the colors in folders, and clipped on top of the folder is a fill layer of that said color. So the clipped layer is gonna be set to screen mode, and then the folder is gonna be set to multiply mode. And within each of the folders, I'm drawing in black and white. For example, in the yellow folder, I'm drawing in black. It's going to appear as 100% opaque yellow. And if I'm drawing in like a 50% gray, it's gonna be a 50% opaque yellow. As when I send the file over to the risograph, it has to be in black and white. They see black as full opaque and white as zero, like zero opaque, zero opacity, no ink at all. The reason why I set up my layers in files like this is because it gives me a lot of flexibility. All the layers are non-destructive, and I can go back and like adjust the values. Second is that I'm able to preview the colors as I'm drawing in black and white. And lastly, it takes 2 clicks for me to send the file over to the risograph studio. I just gotta turn off the clipping layer, export each of the color folders as separate PDFs, and I'm done. I have a shortcut that if I click the screen, it jumps to that specific layer. And the second one is that I change the eyedropper tool to select the layer color, not the screen color. That way it selects that gray. It doesn't select yellow or green or orange. When it goes to coloring, I like to start with a really rough color pass at first. This section is gonna be very yellow, this section is gonna be very orange, this section is gonna be green. And after I get a general idea, I'm gonna start blocking in the darkest color. In this case, it was green. I copy and paste all the layers in the green folder into yellow. And then within the yellow folder, I just adjust the values to be like more yellow, yes, less yellow. And then lastly, I go into orange. The really nice thing for risograph is that you're working with a limited color palette, which means you gotta make some color theory choices, okay? Beatrice is wearing a blue dress. I got yellow, green, and orange. None of that is blue, but I can fake blue. If you're working in like a warm environment and you want something to appear cool, you just have to desaturate it. If you're working in a cool environment and you want something to appear warm, desaturate it. In this case, I took green, like a very lightish green, and then I surrounded it with like a bunch of orange. I will say the hardest part of this piece was having to manage all the layers. Like it was my greatest blessing and my greatest downfall. The piano almost broke me. I had to redraw it a handful of times because I had so many moving parts. This bad boy took like, I'm gonna guess 300 layers. Future me is gonna check how many layers this guy is. Too many layers for an illustration like this. And then I send those PDF files to a risograph studio, and they delivered. Oh my gosh, they printed, like the paper that it's printed on is the most luxurious paper I've ever used. Here's a risograph print compared to the same YK print. Yeah. I think some takeaways I had from doing this piece is that less is more. Having all those separate layers, although it was really nice for it to be non-destructible, it took away from the purpose of risograph, which is to have a limited color palette. So in the future, I would definitely limit how many layers I'm making, as well as how many values of gray I'm using. After this, anytime I want to make an illustration, I think, Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if it was a risograph? First of all, risograph is like 4 times more expensive to print compared to like a regular CMYK print, and it just takes a lot more time, like design-wise, to set it up. And my current reason of why an illustration should be a risograph print is 1, it has to utilize unique color combinations that cannot be expressed through CMYK, and 2, I must like really want it. Like I must really enjoy that show or that media or its original art. That was my process on how I made an over the garden wall risograph. See ya!